Hello and welcome to the Successful Bookkeeper Summit. I am so happy to be joining you today to share some of the things that I've learned through the School of Hard Knocks about how to become more efficient and maximize your time. I am Jessica Fox, and I have been at this for a really long time. But I didn't always have my act together. I wasn't always efficient with my time, and I want to share with you some of the most impactful things that really had a good impact in my business. I have been at this since the year 2000, but I cannot say that I really got my act together until 2018. But since then, I won several awards, so I must be doing something right, and I plan to share some of those things and tips with you because it is my passion to talk about efficiencies, workflow systems. That is my jam. Now, before we get started, I am passionate about making the world a better place, and I do this via an organization called B1G1. So I encourage you right now, pull out your mobile phone and scan the QR code on the screen, or you can visit the URL address on your screen and select the project that resonates the most with you. I will make this happen in your honor at no cost to you, just for taking time to attend this session. So go ahead and scan it now. So today I want to talk about time management and efficiency, and before we really dive into what has worked with me, I want to share some of the most common time management techniques. You're probably familiar with several of them, whether or not you may have implemented them in your life. You may have implemented some even unconsciously. So number one is prioritization. This is where you identify and focus on high impact tasks. Believe it or not, I did not do this for a very long time. I used to sit down at my desk and work on what I felt like working on and not what I really should have been working on. Number two, it's batch processing. This is where you group similar tasks like invoicing or data entry and complete them in dedicated time blocks to increase efficiency. So an example for bookkeeping would be instead of doing a monthly close from beginning to end, client per client, you would do all of the bank feeds, process all of the receipts for all clients, do them in stages, and then once everybody's transactions were coded, then you will move to the next step of your process, whether it may be reconciling, quality reviews, accruals, anything like that. Then number three is time blocking. This is where you allocate specific blocks of time to different tasks or clients. That way you're minimizing context switching and enhancing focus. There have been studies that show that any time that you get interrupted or that you switch gears even briefly, it takes you about 20 minutes to get back, for your brain to really get back to the level of focus that you were in before you switch gears. This is why I have found time blocking to be so important for me, because I otherwise would just be having squirrel syndrome. I would just get so distracted. Oh, email notification. Let me see what that email is. And next thing I know, hours have gone by and I don't have a lot to show for it. Then number four is setting deadlines. This is where you establish clear deadlines for each task to maintain a steady pace and avoid last-minute rushes. As you can see so far, this is not like a one or none of the other type of approach. These are different techniques that you can combine and implement together. And then five, there is the use of automation tools. I am a big fan of automation. It's like the employee of the month in my firm almost every month. And this is where you implement software for automating repetitive tasks, such as data entry, transaction categorization, report generation, and a lot of administrative tasks also. It could even automate your marketing or your client onboarding or your lead management. Now, there are still a few more time management techniques, and this includes delegation. So if possible, delegate lower priority or routine tasks to free up time for more complex or high value activities. Now, I know that those of you that are solo are thinking right now, well, this does not apply to me. think again. You do not need to have an employee to delegate. You can delegate personal things to open up more time for work things, or you can just outsource several things. I was a solopreneur for many, many years. The very first thing I started to delegate was my gardening, my landscaping. Yes, I could do my own lawn, but it was taking valuable time away from working on the business, so I hired a lawn service. Maybe it's laundry or house cleaning or errand running that you can delegate. But in your business, even as a solopreneur, you can still delegate certain things. So the very first thing that I had delegated without hiring employees was my social media marketing. That is not my zone of genius. I felt like it took me longer than it should. I knew that somebody else could create just as good or better posts than I could in less time. So it was worth it to me to hire a company, a contractor to create that for me. And that's just some examples. So if you have ideas for things for delegations, share them in the chat so that others can benefit from those ideas that they may not have occurred to. Then there's also limiting interruptions. This is so critical. You want to set aside specific times for checking emails and messages to avoid constant distractions. Turn off the pop-ups, turn off the beeps and the bells and the whistles and all of the notifications. They cause so much distraction, it really hurts your efficiency. There are no emergencies in accounting. There's no email that really you have to answer right then and there. And when I did this, I had such a quick, measurable impact of time savings because those pop-ups are so distracting. Even if you just need to click to minimize them, it really disrupts your flow. Now, you also want to take regular breaks. This is important, and I am very guilty of omitting this, and I actually have to schedule my breaks or I forget. So take short scheduled breaks to avoid burnout and maintain a high level of concentration throughout the workday. And then you also want to have effective communication. This is not something that people consider a time management technique, but it definitely is. Clearly communicate with clients about timeline expectations to prevent misunderstanding and time-consuming corrections. Better to just touch it once than have to do back and forth and multiple clarifications and questions and revisions. You will save tons of time. And then also continuous learning. Stay updated with new bookkeeping tools and techniques that can save you time and improve efficiency. Now, something that I found that was difficult for me when I was trying to get organized was prioritization, because everything felt urgent. Everything felt that it needed to be done. So I want to show you this amazing technique that was shown to me by Teresa Slack, and it's been around for years, but I don't know why I was in business for so long and had never heard of it. And this is called the Eisenhower Decision Matrix. And this is a way for you to sort everything that you need to do to get out of that urgency trap, to stop feeling like you're constantly having to do everything is urgent, everything is on fire, everything has to be done now. So the way that you sort your tasks is you will create your to-do list, and then you would assign two categories to each, whether or not it's important and whether or not it's urgent. And there are templates online for this, and I will provide a resource of an Excel spreadsheet that you can use to quickly do this. But you can do it in a piece of paper, you can do it on a dry erase board. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you are prioritizing your task correctly. So you create your to-do list, you go down the list. Is it important? Yes or no? Is it urgent? Yes or no? Once you figure that out, then you put them in the different blocks. Things that are important and urgent are the things that you are doing. You are doing them now. Anything else comes after you're done with that block. Now, things that are not important, but that are urgent, these are things that you should delegate. And then the question becomes, who can do it for you? If you have a team, that's easier. But if you don't have a team, you may still find ways to delegate it. In my case, when I didn't have employees, a lot of my delegation was to automation. Zapier became my best friend and related tools to be able to delegate some of the stuff and free up my time. Then if it's something is important, but it's not urgent, then you get to decide when this should get done. And this is where you can schedule a time to do it. And that's where time blocking comes in handy, because you can look at your calendar. Okay, I'm really busy this week, but things are looking better in 2 weeks. I am going to schedule this in my calendar as an appointment with my business that I am going to do this task then. And then if it's not important and not urgent, don't bother doing it. Why is it even in your to-do list in the first place? Now, there are several benefits to time blocking, and if you think of any additional ones, please put them in the chat. Number one, a big one for me, is that it helps you manage your workload to reduce overwhelm. I felt like I was constantly overwhelmed by this mile-long to-do list and feeling that there were not enough hours in the day to really make any good progress in it. You're also better able to gauge capacity for new projects. One of the things that really used to stress me out was committing to a project, especially like cleanups, catch-ups, those rescue projects that are a little harder to tell how long they're gonna take. And then realizing you told the client, yes, I'll do this by the end of the month, and you do not have enough time to do it. That is stressful, and I do not work well sleep deprived. I need my sleep. So by implementing time blocking, I am able to at a glance look at my calendar and see my realistic capacity and be able to provide clients with accurate timelines. So that way I am under promising and over delivering, because if looks like I can do it in 3 weeks, I'll tell them 4 or 5 weeks. I get it done earlier. Client is thrilled. And if something happens, because life sometimes gets in the way, I have built in a buffer. And that way I am late by my internal standards, but as far as the client is concerned, I am still on time. Now, another benefit of time blocking is that it prevents double booking. And this is something that I hear very often from other bookkeepers and accountants that don't keep very good track of their schedule, and suddenly they find themselves maxed out in the day because they have meetings, they have errands, appointments, client work, sales tax filings, payroll to run, and suddenly it becomes an emergency room situation where you're having to triage, which is the patient that is closest to death. Let me do that first and hope I can get to the rest before it's too late. Now, also time blocking forces you to commit and finally get it done. This was very helpful to me because I tend to procrastinate on things that don't bring me joy, things that I know need to get done, but I am not really in the mood to get them done. Let me know in the chat, that's also you, because I am sure I am not the only one. But I no longer had that last minute pressure of having to race against a deadline because I procrastinated until the last minute. Now, also time blocking helps you plan realistically, because you have a better understanding of what your capacity is like, so you are not taking on more than you can realistically do. We are humans. We do not master time travel. We cannot be doing multiple things at the same time effectively, at the very least. So we want to be realistic in our planning. It also reduces distractions. I am so much more focused and effective when I am not constantly distracted and then having to figure out where is it that I left off. Also, it improves efficiency. It is amazing how much time I got back. When I first started on this journey of efficiency, time management, time blocking, I had very few clients, about maybe 10 or 12, and I was working over 30 hours per week serving those clients. Now, I have a lot more than that. I have over 32 clients and I work less than 30 hours per week. And those 30 hours includes doing things like this, talking to you guys, hosting webinars, doing presentations. So my actual bookkeeping time is probably about 20 hours per week. That is the power of being efficient, organized, and really managing your time. You get such huge time savings that I was able to reclaim the work-life balance that I did not have in the first few years that I started my business. I started my business to be present for my children, but then I found myself working at all hours, especially at night after they went to bed, being tired, being cranky, always like having work on my mind. Not anymore. I now work from 9:30 to 3:30 p.m. I usually leave early on Fridays. I don't work nights and weekends anymore, and I am not behind. So this could also be you, and I would love to celebrate that being you in the future. And it also helps you feel productive because you no longer feel like a hamster in a wheel, running, not getting anywhere. And you avoid working nights and weekends unless you really want to. When I first started the transition, I did occasionally work nights just because I was bored. I am an insomniac, I am a night owl, and I just felt like it. But now I don't anymore. I moved, my office is in the basement, so once I go up the stairs at the end of the day, I have no desire to come back down to my office. But if you want to work nights, you could. Then it becomes on your terms rather than out of necessity. Now, there is this quote that I haven't figured out who first said it. I've heard it before, but I couldn't find anybody to give credit to. And that is, what gets tracked gets done. So I'll say this again, what gets tracked gets done. If you track what you need to do, it will eventually get it done, especially if you use the Eisenhower matrix to prioritize it. So how do we get started? I am going to just show you a very brief overview of this. First, you need a calendar. You probably have a calendar in some shape or form, but pick what you will use. There are lots of apps available. I like Google Calendar just because I use Google Workspace for my business anyway. If you are a Microsoft 365 user, you can use the Microsoft Calendar. There are other apps that you can use. If you tend to have your phone like surgically attached to your hand, maybe the calendar in your phone is the better use. It could be a paper calendar. It could be a whiteboard on your office. It doesn't matter what shape or form it takes. The key is to use it. This is not going to work if you don't keep up with it. Then you want to set your schedule being realistic. So you need to make sure that you are accounting for your accurate capacity so that you are not overexerting yourself, planning so much work that you don't have time left for life or biological needs. I like using color coding to visually see what your schedule is like at a glance. So I have multiple calendars in my Google Calendar, and I have 3 primary ones. I have a personal calendar that's purple, I have a business meeting calendar that's blue, and I have a business to-do calendar that's green. That allows me to, at a glance, I look at my monthly view or weekly view or day view of my calendar, and I can see how busy I am just by how much white space there is, and then I can see what type of things I have going on just by the color. So it makes it very easy for me to, at a glance, gauge what the day is like and if I need to make adjustments. And then you want to plan, tweak, and get stuff done. Now, I do strongly recommend that you schedule your time in advance. Time blocking is most effective when you're creating those time blocks as things get added to your to-do list. Don't just have a to-do list and be like, okay, today let me see who I need to get done. Okay, I'll work on this client from 9 to 10, and then I'll do this thing from 10 to 4, whatever. That doesn't work as efficiently. So what works for me is I use an app that is linked directly to my Google Calendar, and it's a task tracking app. It's called GQs. And it only works with Google. So if you're Microsoft, sorry, it won't work for you. There may be something else for the Microsoft environment. And whenever I add a task, a to-do, I simply assign it a date, I assign it a time, and I assign it a time block. If I think it's going to take me 30 minutes, I assign it 45 minutes. That way I give myself a blocker. And that way my calendar is filling itself as things are being added to my pipeline. This prevents double booking, because that way if somebody uses my scheduling link to schedule a meeting, they won't schedule a meeting at a time that I have scheduled to do some work. And then all I need to do is tweak it. And that tweak does not take very long at all. So a sample schedule is on Friday afternoons. I schedule next week's work. So do this while your mind is still in work mode, but you know that you're not about to start any projects. So make sure that do this at the end of the day before you leave your desk. Then on Monday morning, I review that plan of attack, tweak as needed. If something came up, like say I had to take my dog to the vet, or some client emergency came up, whatever the case may be, and then tweak as needed and get stuff done. Now, one of the things that I noticed a lot of people that try to implement this failing is that they forget to account for non-work time. This is critical. You need to schedule that. When I first started time blocking, I didn't do this, and then I will have a sugar crash at the end of the day because I skipped lunch, because I did not build a buffer for that type of thing. So make sure that you schedule personal time. Block off times when you know you can't get any stuff done. If you need to take your children to school or walk them to the school bus, or go to the dentist, do any sort of errand that you know you cannot get work done at that time, make sure that you are blocking it off. So this includes commuting, if it applies to you. If you visit clients, you need to block off the time that you spend driving to and from the client's office. Make sure that you are building in breaks such as lunch, any other breaks that you want to take. It's not healthy to be glued to your desk all day long without stretching your muscles and getting some blood flowing. Any errands that you need to drive, any family activities, make sure that you account for all of this. This is one of the most common mistakes that I see where people tell me time blocking did not work for me. It's because they did not account for the work time, and they really tried to cram their calendar too much. They didn't have a clear picture of their accurate capacity. Now, you want to be smart about your planning, and SMART is an acronym that can be applied to anything in your business and even your personal life when you are planning anything. And that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So it means that if you create a vague task, I am going to do client work in the morning, it's less likely to get done. So you want to be specific. What exactly are you doing, or for what clients are you going to work on? You need to make it measurable. How do you know that it got done? Well, in the case of, data entry, when you enter all transactions, make it sure that it's achievable. If it's something that you cannot do either because you do not have the information yet, you're waiting on a statement or on a receipt, or there's some other dependency that is beyond your control, or perhaps it takes more time than you had scheduled, that's not achievable. It also needs to be relevant. It needs to be relevant to what you need to accomplish, not just going down a rabbit hole of watching YouTube videos of viral cats doing funny things. And time-bound means, or other people call this timely, meaning that you give it a specific time. When is it going to be done? How long is it going to take? So the more specific that you schedule a task, the more likely it is that you'll actually complete it. And I know that sometimes people get discouraged because life got in the way and you did not get to do the task when you said that you wanted to do it. It's okay. We can reschedule. And this is what I like about using Google Calendar as my calendar, because it's just drag and drop. I drag it from where I originally scheduled it and pick a new slot for it. So if you are more inclined to use a paper calendar, this is where I recommend using pencil so that you can erase and move it to a new slot. Now, it is very important that you do not overcommit yourself. So I recommend budgeting more time than you think you need for a specific task. So like I said earlier, if I think it's going to take me 30 minutes, budget 45 minutes. That way, if it takes you longer, it does not derail the rest of your day. And if it only takes you 30 minutes, guess what? You have 15 minutes to take a break, do something fun, or tackle something else in your to-do list. Now, you will also want to build buffers on deadlines, so that way you won't feel overwhelmed when life inevitably happens. So if sales tax returns are due by the 15th of the month, time block them for your calendar for like the 10th or the 12th as the latest. That way, your internal deadline is what you're going to strive for. And if something happens, you get sick, there is an internet outage, or something else happens that prevents you from getting it done by that internal deadline, it's not an emergency. Penalties are not applying yet. You still have some time to catch up. So when it comes to this, it's very important. There's the real client-facing deadline, and then there's your internal deadline for time blocking. Now, you also want to, in order to be efficient in time blocking and really get the most out of it, you need to identify your peak productivity time. We are not all consistently productive at all times of the day, and we all have different ebbs and flows of our energy. So in order to effectively time block, you need to have clarity on the following questions. Number 1, what time of day do you feel most alert and focused? Are you a morning person or a night person? Different people will have different answers. What time of day do you feel most alert and focused? When do you typically have the least distractions? If you know that you normally have a lot of distractions when your kids get home from school, that's not normally your peak productivity time. Are there specific times where you feel more creative or analytical? Because sometimes we can be productive at certain times, but it's a different type of productivity. We may be very good at being creative at a certain time, but other times are better suited for doing cleanups. And how does your energy level vary throughout the day? We don't all have a constant level of energy, and we need to make sure that our schedule is adapting to our natural biorhythm rather than trying to force our bodies to be productive at times where it normally won't cooperate. When do you usually complete your most challenging tasks? Do you prefer working in long stretches or in short bursts? Some people like doing marathon sessions, and other people like me, I am maybe undiagnosed ADHD, I don't know, but I do get bored after a while and I need to switch gears every so often. How does your mood change during the day? We're not all constantly steadily happy at the entire day long, and we want to make sure that our work is scheduled and accounting for those ebbs and flows. Are there times where you consistently feel sluggish or unfocused? And how do external factors like meals, exercise, or family commitments affect your productivity? Now, you're gonna want to reflect on the past weeks or months and identify any patterns in your productivity. And it's okay to have only a vague idea today, and the key is to have somewhere to start from, and then you continue to observe and tweak as needed. Now, there are some pro tips that I want to give you that I learned in my journey of becoming more efficient. And number 1, as I just mentioned about knowing your peak productivity time, well, now that you know your peak productivity times, schedule your work during those times. So schedule breaks, errands, and other personal stuff during your least productive times. I am not a morning person. There is no point in me trying to schedule any complex type of work first thing in the morning when I first get to my desk, because I am not going to be very focused. I am going to be sluggish, and it's going to take me a lot longer, being more prone to mistakes. My peak productivity time tends to be after 2 p.m. So I make sure that I schedule my errands way after that or way before that, and that I do not schedule client meetings during those peak productivity times. So I am more likely to talk to a client in a time where I am awake and in a good mood, but not necessarily firing on all cylinders. And then I make sure that I schedule any rescue projects, cleanups, catch-ups, and the like during times where I know that I have no distractions and my brain is running and really, really fast, being very efficient, and I can get things done a lot faster. I recommend using a task tracking app that integrates with your calendar. Bonus points if that app lets you create a task from email. There's 1,000 apps out there. I am not going to go through the list of the options, but if you guys have one already that you like and love, please put it in the chat for the benefit of those that may be out there looking for some. Now, this is very important. I strongly recommend, if you aren't yet, that you use a scheduling app that integrates with your calendar so that clients and prospects can schedule phone calls and meetings with you. Gone are the days of going back and forth via email. Oh, let's have a meeting. Does Monday afternoon work for you? No, I'm not available at that time. How about Tuesday morning? Well, I cannot do Tuesday morning, but I'm available Tuesday afternoon. That is time consuming. That is inefficient. There are so many apps out there that do scheduling. If you have a CRM tool, you may already have one. If not, there are tons of them. Some are free, some are paid. They're all worth it. Calendly is the most common popular one in our industry. Acuity Scheduling is another one. There's Book Like a Boss. If there's one that you really like, put it in the chat for the benefit of those that may not have one yet and now realizing, I should explore that, because it's so much easier and so time saving to just be able to give somebody a link. Oh, you want to chat? Sure. Click here and select the day and time that works best for you. And automation comes in place because they select the time. It automatically gets added to your calendar. The system automatically sends them the email confirmation. It sends them the reminder. It creates the Zoom meeting. It gives you a reminder, hey, you have a meeting, call them or show up. It's a win-win. And then I strongly recommend that you block off your peak productivity times from your scheduling app. So as I said earlier, the times that I am more prone to being really good at getting stuff done, I don't want that time wasted on client meetings, because by the time I am done with the meeting, if I try to do it, yes, I can get it done, but it's probably gonna take me longer. So putting it all together, I want to make sure that you are clear on some action steps, because the way to get some measurable actual results from this is not just listen to me babble for 30-40 minutes. Is to be able to take some action and see some results. So number one, I want you to identify your peak productivity times. Think about your day. Start noticing the patterns. When are you feeling sluggish? A lot of people get really tired right after eating lunch. Well, pay attention to that. Does that happen to you? Are you the type of person that hits the ground running in the morning and you're full of energy, and then you may crash in a few hours later? Pay attention to that. Are you the type of person that after a certain point in the afternoon, you just can't concentrate anymore? Notice all of those patterns. We are all different, so our peak productivity times will vary, and it's important to have that journey of self-discovery to be able to know what are the right times for you to plan different type of work. Number two, identify how you will track your time blocks. Are you going to use Google Calendar? Are you going to use a paper calendar? Are you going to use a dry erase board? Whatever the case may be, make sure that it's something that is portable, so that if you're traveling or you're somewhere else, you can still access that information. And that's why I like apps. But if you love paper, nothing wrong with paper. The key is whatever you pick, use it. If you pick something and you notice after a week you're not using it consistently, it's time to reevaluate and select something else. Number 3, identify the maximum number of hours per week that you want to work. This is key in identifying your capacity. We do not have infinite capacity for taking on work. And yes, you could theoretically work every hour of every day, but it's not sustainable and it is not healthy. And that is not why we went into business for ourselves. So decide what hours you are available to work, factoring any breaks, errands, personal obligations, and the number of hours that are left. That is your capacity. That is your maximum number of hours per week. Because when you time block, you want to time block up to your capacity, not go beyond that and then have to lose sleep or miss out on personal relaxation or children activities or whatever the case may be because you overextended yourself. Number 4, identify what days of the week and what hours of the day you want to work, making sure to account for peak productivity times. You can make your own schedule as a self-employed bookkeeper. You choose when you want to work. You may want to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Nothing wrong with that. But perhaps you want to have the flexibility in schedule to be available to do whatever. You can pick whatever days you want to do. So for me, when I started, I was a stay-at-home mom. I needed to be present for my kids. So I needed to make sure that I work around their schedule. Now my kids are older, but I homeschool. So I still need to make sure that my capacity factors that in. And I no longer like working nights and weekends. So now I make sure that I am at my desk by 10. If I show up at 9:30, great. And I try to stay at my desk until 3:30. I very rarely I'm at my desk past 4. And on Fridays, I tend to leave at 1 because I decided that that's the schedule that brings me joy. And then I plan around it. So identify those days and hours that are right for you. Now, in the block of working hours, once you have those figured out, identify the times where you are less likely to be productive and reserve those times for client meetings, personal errands, etc. So for me, after about 2:30, 3 p.m., if I am working on something, I can finish it, but it's not a good time for me to start anything new. Like, it's just not going to get done very well or not get done completely, or I'm going to be dreading it the entire time. So I tend to schedule my errands for 3:30. I have to go to the doctor. Yeah, I make the appointment at 3:30 or 4. In the morning, I am very heavily reliant on caffeine because I am not a morning person. So while I may make it to my desk at 9:30, I am not 100% present to be able to do accurate bookkeeping at that time. So for me, the best time to have client meetings is in the morning because I am awake enough to have a conversation. And then number 6, schedule all complex work, such as book cleanups, during your peak productivity time. I've said this before, and I say it again. It is very important that you not only prioritize what needs to get done, but do it at the times where you're going to be most effective in doing it. Now, there's also some other things that you can do, some of which I've mentioned. So I recommend using an online scheduler that is synced to your online calendar, so it won't allow people to schedule appointments during your peak productivity time. Assign each task a date, time, and duration, but be conservative, like I said before, on your estimate. If you think the task is going to take 1 hour, allocate an hour and a half in your calendar. That way it gives you a buffer for surprises and delays without derailing the rest of your day. Also, schedule administrative tasks. Instead of looking at your email every time you get a notification, schedule times to check your email. I check my email 3 times per day. When I first get to my desk, right after I get back to my desk from lunch, and last thing before I leave in the day. I triage and I reply to what can be replied quickly. Anything else that needs to get done, I turn it into a task that gets time blocked and add it to my calendar. And I don't look at my email in between. I do not have pop-ups. I do not have notifications, because really there are no emergencies in accounting. And then schedule the work on a date several days before its due date to allow you that flexibility to reschedule if needed without missing deadlines. This is what I said earlier. Have an internal deadline that is several days before what I call the drop dead deadline that it has to be done by. This is especially critical for compliance deadlines. If a tax return is due on the 15th, your internal deadline should be no later than the 12th. I like the 10th because life happens, and sometimes it's the clients happening, and I do not want to get myself stressed out unnecessarily. At the end of each week, review the next week's schedule and then drag and drop your time blocks as needed to account for changes in availability, new priorities, etc. So that's all that I have for you today. It's been a pleasure talking with you. If you are interested in learn more, have questions, join me in the Bookkeeping Systems Lounge. This is a free community where I share information, and we have live monthly sessions, support, and you can pick my brain there. I am also on LinkedIn, so feel free to request me there. Just send me a message if you connect with me on LinkedIn and tell me that you saw me at the Successful Bookkeeper Summit, so that I know that you are not a bot, because there is so much spam there. Well, I thank you so much for your time. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your summit. Take care.